Good morning and welcome back to the channel. This is Adam's Restoration. As the title says, this is a one-year review of my 1989 Ford Ranger. So I just want to go over some things, about this truck that I've learned over the 3.5 years of ownership on this thing. If you guys have seen in past videos that I've done on this exact rig, I actually rebuilt this engine and finished it last year, I believe on the 19th of October. And I've had it on the road ever since. I have put another transmission in this thing as well, because I basically grenaded the stock one. So just a few things about this. This is a, like I said, 89 Ford Ranger. It is the Super Cab, as they call it. It is four-wheel drive, of course. As you can see, the hub's down here. It's got a 2.9 liter V6 that was rebuilt by yours truly. So these trucks, let's talk about power first. So these trucks come with that 2.9 liter stock. They made like 144 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque. I mean, these things I hear stock will do about 95 miles an hour wide open, and this one will do about 104, 105 wide open on flat level ground from a dead stop. So I know it's got a little bit more power than stock, and who doesn't want more power, right? Things I like about this truck, it's small, it turns really well, it's pretty light, weighs 3,500 pounds on the scale, and it's really great off-road. You don't need a million horsepower to go off-road. Here's that 2.9. This thing's bored 30 over, so it's like a 2.98. It's got brand new injectors in it, brand new cam. Torque yield bolts, you of course throw those away when you rebuild an engine that has those, but I installed 12-9 grade bolts. Most of the performance stuff I got for this thing came from a company called Morana Racing. I'm not sure exactly where they're based out of. I think it might be Canada. The guy who owns it, his name is Tom Morana, and he does a lot of Ford racing parts for all sorts of stuff, so you'll have to look his website up. But for the old school guys, I've got a 3/4 race cam in this thing. For the new school, it's the second most aggressive cam that you can put in this engine. And it does pretty good. Honestly, if I, like I said, was going to keep this thing forever, I would probably upgrade the gears to 410s. It's got 373s in it, just because the power on this cam comes in around like 3,500 RPM, and the gearing in these transmissions on these things are what you would call pretty far apart. So each time you shift, it drops it by quite a bit of RPMs, so it pulls it out of the power band, kind of. So acceleration, especially at higher speeds, takes a little bit longer because you're basically pulled out of that power band. First couple of things I did after I rebuilt this engine and got this truck broken in was I discovered that the stock fan does not like 6,000 RPM. So I actually am wiring in an electronic fan that's all self-contained. It's got a thermostat in it and everything. Because the stock fan, the plastic one, was literally coming apart. And if anybody has these 80s Fords, 80s, early 90s Fords, even the Mustangs and the F-150s, 250s, if they have the plastic fan, you'll notice that they do get cracks in them and start coming apart. Another thing I did was I installed a Canon air filter on this thing, the stock paper filter. I replaced it, and I noticed a 1 mile per gallon difference, which isn't a lot, but it helps. I also put an MSD coil on here to help with my ignition, and it does have iridium spark plugs. The exterior of this truck isn't, the best, but the truck's over 30 years old, so I mean, you're gonna find problems with it. It's got this rust that's coming on, on the top of the cab. The primer's showing, the paint's flaking off. So I would like to paint this truck. I do want to paint it this machine gray color with gloss, of course. I think it would look great with the black wheels. Another thing about these things is they actually have two keys. They have an oval key, like this one here, which opens the doors, and then they have a square key which runs the ignition. I myself, I love that because I can start this thing in the morning, warm it up, and I can actually lock it as well, so it's a little bit more secure. I mean, if someone wants to steal it, really, they can just break a window or use a Slim Jim to unlock it and take off. But it is a little bit more of a deterrent when it's locked. Also, while I'm doing this review, I'm gonna do a tire rotation and an oil change at the same time. So as I said earlier, I had to change the transmission in this thing. It came stock with an FM 146 Mitsubishi transmission. It now has a Mazda M5 OD R1. A little bit better transmission. The gearing is pretty much identical, but it's a little bit stronger, I guess. The 146s are known for blowing the input shaft bearings apart, which this thing definitely did. So another thing about these trucks is this thing gets, if I maintain an average speed between 60 and 70 miles an hour, I can get pretty much 20 miles per gallon. Okay, so now that we got it up on the jack stands, and it's super safe, pointers to go over, let's go ahead and go over the tires. So the old tires that came on this were GT Wranglers from Goodyear, which were good until I started driving this thing down the freeway all the time. Actually developed a big round spot here where they were separating, and that was before I ever topped this truck out in terms of like how fast it was or anything like that. So it wasn't from that, it was just because they were old and they went bad. So I found a set of 4 of these tires, 4 CM whatever, and they are MT-08s. I got 4 of these tires delivered to my house for $336, and then I had a local tire shop here mount and balance them. But these tires are awesome. They're MT rated and snow rated. They do really well in the snow, really well in the mud, which really was an advantage for this thing. The only way this thing would be better is if I had an even taller lift on it, and if it had locking differentials. That would be awesome. This thing would probably be pretty close to unstoppable. Another thing I did to this thing was I installed LED light bars on the very back, hooked up to the reverse. They're a little dirty, it's a little dirty, but they are 3,000 lumen each, and they only come on when I put it in reverse, just because, you know, the stock reverse lights, you just can't see nothing when you go to back up. So it makes it a lot safer. And also sometimes when I go to my storage unit late at night, I can just back this thing up, leave it in reverse, and just leave the ignition switch on, and then I can just have light in the storage unit. So the cabs on these things are actually pretty roomy. The seats, of course, like I said, you know, this is a 30-year-old plus truck. So you're gonna get the dash cracking, you know, typical stuff. The shingle is actually pretty good condition. The panels have some dry rotting right there, some cracking, fade, all that stuff. And also both window motors are dead now. This one works, but the gear is busted in it, and it actually just busted like a month ago. And the lock actuators don't work anymore either. It's not because it's a piece of crap, it's just because it's so old, you know, that stuff can only last so long. But other than that, the cab actually stays really warm. Lots of room down here for when you're wearing boots. I wear boots a lot, so when you're wearing boots, you actually have a lot of room down here. It's actually got a brake booster on here, which is hilarious because these things are only rated to pull 5,000 pounds. Speaking of towing, when I towed the Escort back to my house, the little Ford Escort that I bought, this thing actually did really well. Now granted, that car only weighs like 2,500 pounds. Same with the tow dolly, is only like 750. So you're pulling a combined weight of, you know, 3,500 pounds. So I didn't really notice it really. Let's see. Yeah, the windshield's busted on this one, but I'm gonna get it fixed. Seats are very comfortable in this thing. The exhaust on this thing, it has full-length headers. I don't know if you can see them or not. Lighten this up a little bit. You can see the header pipes here, and they do go all the way down to a Y-pipe collector. So what I did was when I went to swap the transmission on this thing, I went ahead and welded a collector on here, and then I clamped a flex pipe because I got to get over this cross member, and I have a 30-inch glass back on this thing. Now I only clamp these temporarily. I am going to weld these up because there's a little bit of an exhaust leak here. But yeah, that's a Y pipe there. You can see the M5OD on here. Hooks up just like a normal transmission does, so you can do that swap fairly easily. On this power steering pump, the seal is going bad on it, so it started puking ATF all over the place here because of that, so it's kind of annoying. This thing doesn't sip a drop of oil, and I'm changing it. It runs kind of rich just because it needs a tune, but I run it about anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 miles on synthetic oil, and that is AMSOIL, if anybody's wondering. So now that I got all the tires off and set back in the spot I need them to be, I'll show you how the hub I was talking about earlier. I mean, a lot of you probably already know this, but it's literally held on by nothing but the wheel and the lug nuts. So, I mean, that's just kind of different, but at least you can swap these out for the worn hubs, which are a little bit better. You can see some of the oil stuff on here. I am going to put they make 1.5-inch spacers to kind of level this thing out, since the back ride's a little bit higher. So that's about as in-depth as I can go on this thing. Let's see, I got the electric fan on there, got the rebuild, got the new transmission. Yeah, it was a steal. That transmission was a steal. I got it for 150 bucks. And it swaps right in. There's no length difference between the FM 146 and the M5OD. I think on the Ranger forum, it says that there's a 3-inch difference. The only difference I found was the shift tower was a little bit farther forward on the M5OD R1. So, I mean, that's about the only difference there. Got the lights on there, got the exhaust. So, yeah, if you guys have any other questions about any of my toys or any of the rigs that I've got, just send me a comment. Going to be trying to do as many videos as I can now to be a little bit more consistent than I have been over the last like 9 months, so we can hopefully get some fun videos on there. And plus I got new cameras and all sorts of stuff to be playing with too. So if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe if you like it enough, leave a comment in the section down below. Thanks again for stopping by. I hope you guys have a great day.